Hello there. Having looked at the creation of content and text for a business presentation, the next step is to focus on how you can make your slides and visual elements synergize with the text to create a truly impactful dual-channel audio-visual experience for your audience. As I've said before, and I will say again, visual elements are not a tool for the presenter. Okay? Not a tool for the presenter. It's there to provide the audience with an additional content channel. And therefore, you don't write the slides for yourself. You write them for the audience on a standalone basis. That means that if nothing else, even if you were to keep quiet and they read your slide, they should be able to take away something from it, some meaning. If not the other things, if not the explanations, the implications, or the detailed information, they should still be able to get something out of it. So this is very important. You do not read from your slide. The moment you start reading from your slide, your audience will lose complete interest and credibility in you because they can read the slide. And they say, this guy is reading the slide. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. After all, it's 10 slides. I mean, you should have the slide branded into your brain by now, okay? So you do not read from the slide. The other very minor but related issue in connection with using visual elements, that is, you have to be familiar with the technology that you need to make the visual elements run. For instance, if you're embedding a video in your slide, you need to know how it works, and you need to know whether it actually works in the physical setting at the venue of your presentation. It works great on your laptop, but the moment you connect it into the client's audiovisual system or projector, it doesn't work anymore. So visual elements are great, and I've told you how you use them, and I've told you how to make sure that when you actually use it on site, they work to your advantage. So let's talk about creating slide content. As I've said before, you have to limit the content. There's only so much you can put onto the real estate that forms the viewing plane of a slide. Okay? It's probably scarcer than land in Nariman Point in Mumbai, and probably more expensive. So limit the content. You have to do this. You have to mercilessly hack the words down and get them to yet be effective and standalone. This is important. I've said it. They must be standalone. The other thing is that when you create slide content, put one key concept or message or argument or topic on one slide. Do not mix them up. And using the Minto pyramid principle and the model that comes with it, you can actually fill up the boxes. So this is what I do. Having decided how many slides I can fit into a certain presentation, given the time and other constraints, I open that many boxes and I write the headings. You can do this in PowerPoint in outline mode. You can actually just fill in the headers, and you've got some kind of a jotting of the Minto pyramid structure that you've created, and you actually first put the titles in so that you have only one key concept per slide, and you know exactly how many slides you need to get there. But that's when you actually also, when you're talking about text, there's one rule which I'm going to share with you, okay? And you can think about it. It may be something that you may agree with me or you may not, but it's called the rule of 7. And for text slides, excluding the title in the title block, you should put no more than 7 lines per slide and 7 words per line. and one concept per slide, right? This is the rule of 7. Therefore, people find that images and charts may be more effective to pack in more data or information in a more concise form and in a more easy to consume form. The other thing that you need to do is when you put the slide up, you must make sure that the audience has enough white space. You can't pack the slide from end to end with tiny font and hope to make it legible. Okay, so even on the slide visual plane, there has to be flow. How does the eye move? If you have multiple elements, if you have some text, you have some images, you have a video box, you have a chart, you have to understand how the audience, the viewer, will actually look at it. Okay, and so flow within the slide is important. You have to provide margins and white space. Number 3, keep your format consistent. Let there be a template. Use a template, either a template of your own creation or use one of the standard PowerPoint or Canva or other application templates that you get, and use the same template. If you change the layout of every slide, the audience gets into a bit of a problem, because whenever you show them a new slide, they have to first figure out what's on this slide, how does it flow, what should I read first, and so on and so forth. So you can't keep changing formats. Pick one template and go with it. You can make some minor modifications here and there, but not too many. And if you haven't done it already, take a look at what is called the slide master function. In addition to standard design templates, every PowerPoint file can be viewed in slide master view, and you can make changes to font color, layout, and header, footer, all kinds of things with a slide master function. So if you take a look at this image that you see on your screen, it's a way of building a template or a layout. It's called gridding. Okay, the contents don't matter, but what you can see from this image is the fact that you've divided up your slide into specific areas, and there's a certain symmetry about it, and you put different things in different places. So you create a grid, and then you can combine 2 boxes on a grid to make a bigger box, and so on and so forth. But this is a very nice way of actually working with some kind of a consistent layout. Okay, it's called gridding. And so if you're really building a very Dhinchak presentation, then you might want to look at actually building a grid. Otherwise, use a template and life is much easier, right? The other thing that I want you to think about is what I've been talking about PowerPoint, but PowerPoint is not the only application that you get. It's certainly one of the most popular. But you get other types of other brands or different apps for presentation graphics, and look at some of these, okay? Because some of them, like Canva, actually gives you a non-linear approach. So the image that you see here, the little black circles, are actually clickable boxes, and each one will take you to a different set of visuals. So Canva allows you to, it's like a hub and spoke approach. So you start here, you click, and then you can come back, and then you can go to another one, and you come back, and you go to another one. So it gives you a non-linear approach. Whereas in PowerPoint, it's a sequential, chronologically linear approach to slides, okay? So look at, and the technology is only getting better and better and better. So think about what kind of an application would be useful, okay? And how the sequence of slides will flow. The other thing is font. It is always recommended and visually proven that you use a font without serif. It's called a sans serif font. Almost every family of fonts will come in serif and non-serif. For instance, Times New Roman is a serif font. It has little curly whirlies and embellishments. that make it look like Times New Roman, or you use a sans serif font like Verdana or Arial or whatever is your favorite, right? So use a sans serif font for the same point size is much more visible than a serif font. That's the whole point, which means that it'll be easier for your audience to actually see them. Use at least a 28 point slide font, okay? And if you're presenting, it's one thing to present across a table or on a computer screen, but when you project, you have to use bigger font for larger audiences. Using font requires a little experience. You'll get used to it, but the rule is very simple. Just use a sans serif font and then keep experimenting with it. And then the use of color. So color is a very useful visual element, okay? And you can use it to emphasize key points by putting those pieces of text in a different color. Or you can use it, for instance, to differentiate sections, which says, first I'm going to talk about the production aspects and a certain color is used for that. Then I'm going to talk about the engineering aspects and that's got a different color. Or if I'm talking about company A versus company B, I can use company A in one color and company B in another color. Okay, so color is useful. Color can be used to highlight, it can be used to differentiate, it can be used to show and make evident relationships. Use it intelligently, okay? Also remember that the most visible color combination from a legibility point of view is black font on white backgrounds. Okay, when you use dark backgrounds with light fonts, two things happen: difficult for the eye to discern and loss of contrast. This is very, very important. It's not about color per se, it's about contrast to make it legible. So that sometimes people use such subtle differences in color that the audience cannot make out. Or the projector that you use does not really differentiate the color difference of two colors which are very close to each other. Projectors have a habit of washing out color. They fiddle with color, okay? So you have to test your color on the screen with the projector that you have available then. Now, it's getting very complicated, but I think you should remember that try and use bold colors rather than pastels to make it projector proof, and look for contrast. If you want to differentiate or show relationships or highlight free points, the issue is not the color, but the contrast with one color versus the other. The other is high impact visuals. Especially when we talk about visual storytelling, you can't use cheap clip art and this meme kind of stuff that you get, right? All those cutie little fellows, no? Chipmunks and Zuzus and people like that. The audience, if you're selling a $5 million bid, you can't use cheap clip art from Microsoft or somebody else, right? Invest in getting good images. Sometimes companies even will pay for images that they use in presentations, okay? Or they go out and hire designers to put presentations together, like Nancy Duart. However, if you don't want to do all that kind of stuff, you can get very good, high quality, license-free images using the Creative Commons licensing arrangement. So go check out Creative Commons. All media on Wikimedia is Creative Commons license-free material. If you go to Flickr, Flickr has a very large number of images that the owner has actually licensed under the Creative Commons license, and you can use it with attribution, without attribution, with modification, without modification, and so forth. Be very, very picky about the kinds of images you put on, because the kinds of images you put on are not just the images, but the image of your company and its classiness are at stake, okay? A lot of people then use SlideShare for images and even actual slides. Be careful. SlideShare, poor quality. And secondly, you have to have permission. Many of the SlideShare decks are not licensed for reuse or for taking images out of. So be careful about images, right? The other is animation. Animation certainly gets attention. It enlivens presentations. It enhances interest. But the animation must A, be relevant and appropriate and limited, because you can't have you ever seen this person who has 8 lines on a slide and shows you one by one? You know, this is like suspense kind of thing. Don't do that. Audiences don't like this piece. Show them the whole slide. They'll read it and then talk over the slide. If you're using the slide as a prop for your speech, then this makes sense to show it one by one. But if you're going to speak above the slide, and we talk about that, you don't need to get into too much animation. And PowerPoint animation is fairly cheap. Try and use it with caution. Let not too much animation distract the audience, and let it also not make light of a serious presentation, which will adversely affect your image. One thing you can do, however, is to write good slide titles. So if you take a look at this, so visual storytelling, okay, can be done through the clever use of slide titles. Rather than saying sales in Q4, it's fine, but it's dull and boring, you know. But you might want to say upward trend in sales holds promise for profitability. Now, immediately it's become different, right? Think about this. Putting in something different. So like my title on a slide here would say, slide titles, invest in them, exclamation mark. Now you get the message straight and you like it. You don't even have to look at the visual. You just know that, whoop, I got to do this, right? So slide titles are worth investing in. The other thing that I'd like to talk about here in terms of designing visual elements is that the use of graphics and of late infographics is very, very, very powerful tool. Okay, and you have to spend more time creating charts, graphs, and infographics, which will actually not only show you up in a great light, but also improve the ability to communicate what you want to. So when we talk about graphics, there are a few things that you need to do. If you're creating charts or tables or histograms and things like that, you need to spend some time actually crafting those by choosing the right kind of graphic or chart that you want to use to convey the statistical information that you want to share with the audience. You have to be careful about scaling, okay? So I think the issue in slide-based graphics or charts is not the numbers per se, but the quantitative relationships, which means if one bar chart is, you have to scale it down, otherwise you'll end up with a very skewed kind of a bar diagram and things. So the issue is spend time in actually making sure your charts are properly scaled, the use of color, the choice of type of chart that you use, the appropriate graphic to convey your message. And the fact that all the charts are properly labeled, the axes, the data points, the wedge colors and the wedge labels are all properly done. This is very important. Software is very powerful and allows you to do it, but you need to look at these kinds of things which says, am I getting the best out of the chart that I'm putting together? The other very trendy thing and something that audiences really like are infographics. And you can see an example on your screen, a beautiful combination of images, text, icons, colors, and a you can pack it in. This is a very packed slide, but I just want to make a point here by saying that you can do this, and you can, by looking at this, you can immediately figure out what's happening in the slide. And there is software, there is infographic software which allows you to create infographics, and then you can paste them into your PowerPoint or Canva or whatever other application that you have. So think about investing time in creating visuals. We don't have enough time to go into all the details, but I hope I've been able to give you a flair on what it takes to create text and what it takes to create visuals for an effective business presentation. Okay? And remember always the need for sync, that what you say and what you show, or what is seen by the audience, that is, are in sync. Okay? So that is a very vital kind of synergy, a nexus that you have to ensure is always maintained. There's more about all these topics in Communicating for Results. Read chapter 11, pages 327 to 337. And of course, I'd ask you to go back and revisit the article that I talked about in an earlier segment titled Preparing a Presentation. Okay? I've also put together an exercise, non-graded exercise, a practice exercise, but a required exercise. You must do this about the various topics that we've talked about. Okay? And I think that will give you a fair idea of how to go about planning and developing a presentation.